One of the things I actually like about programming is the fact that you can actually build things for yourself. In this video, I'm going to show you something that is really cool, but you have to stay till the end of the video to see the results of what we're going to be building. So I'm going to show you how to build an automation, a tool that allows you to do something pretty cool. Okay, so without me telling you all the details right now, let's just jump into it so you can see exactly what we're going to be building. We're going to use the power of AI and Python and put it together and build something really fun. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. All right, so this is the app that you're going to be building called Task Breakdown App. All right, so essentially we are going to enter a task or goal you'd like to break down into milestones. For instance, I can say run faster and I say generate milestones. So this is going to tap into the OpenAI API and then use a large language model to help us bring the results here to give us the milestones. So milestones task is run faster, and it gives us the milestones in weekly increments. So week 1 and 2 says research and select a local running club. Week 3 and 4 consult with a running coach or experienced runner. Week 5 and 8, and all of these different breakdowns of that main task, which is in this case running faster. Okay, and I can say, let's say, climb Mount Everest and hit enter, and it's going to do the same thing. We should get the milestones breakdown of what to do for that endeavor. So this is pretty amazing because we're using Python and AI to generate something that is very useful. And in the front end here, we're using what we call Streamlit, which is a web framework, a Python web framework that allows us to quickly put together user interfaces such as this. Now, what is OpenAI? Well, OpenAI is the company that is behind ChatGPT and many other AI-based applications and services. So the idea of OpenAI is that they allow us to actually get the data or use their large language model, essentially the models behind ChatGPT and so forth, so that we can include that in our applications. So that is really awesome. Now, the thing about OpenAI API is that you have to actually add or have a credit card and file to be able to have an API key. So it's not a free service, but I want to show you. The great thing also is that if you, at least from the last time I looked, if you're new to opening an account, they give you credits, which means you can actually create or use their OpenAI or use their API for free for a little while because they give you free credits. And so that should be good for, at least if you don't want to continue afterwards, for at least for you to be able to have access to the API and see what is possible. Let's go ahead. So go to openai.com. This is what you should probably see depending on when you're watching, because it's a technology company and things change fastly rather. So what you can do here, let's go to API and let's go to overview. And next, let's go to, say, login. Now, for me, I'm already logged in, so this is what will show. For you, you're going to see something different. Let me go ahead to incognito here so we can see. Say openai.com. I'm going to say login, and voila. So this is what you probably will see if you don't have an account and so forth. So it's very simple. What you need to do is you can either add your email or continue with Google, Microsoft, or with Apple. So choose whatever you can choose here and set up your account. It's very simple and you should have an account. So once you have an account, if you go ahead again, like I did, go to and you can go to login. This is what you will see. You either can go to ChatGPT or API. We want to go to the API. So click here and you should see something similar to this. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see more. Okay, so there are a lot of things here. At this point here, you should be able to create an API key. So if you go down here to this stats, I believe that's what it is. Let me just make this smaller so we can actually see. That's usage. So if you click on usage, this is what you will see. Maybe something different. And what I was talking about is if this is the first time, you usually have about $18 that they give you for free, so for you to be able to get started. So that's plenty for you to do a lot of things, especially nowadays where it's way cheaper to use OpenAI, right? Meaning that they don't charge as much per calls, per request. So $18 will be a lot, all right? So if you first time, you should have that amount as soon as you create an account, and I believe you have to add your credit card or something like that. Don't quote me on that. It's been a little while, but you should have something set up like that, okay? So what you want to do next is let's go to API keys as such, and you want to create an API key, right? Remember the API key is going to be what will allow us to be able to use this API, this application programming interface, which essentially is a way for us to interact with the large language models, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create one. Make sure you create one, and I'm going to name this Python-course. You can name whatever you want and create your secret. Now, this is the secret that is created. Now, make sure that you copy right away, because if you don't copy it and save it somewhere safe, then the moment we say done here, we're not going to be able to see it again. So copy it and save it somewhere safe. I'm going to close, and I'm going to do exactly what I'm supposed to do, which is to save it somewhere safe. As you see, I have no other way to get that API key. And you can always go ahead and delete the API keys once you're done or so. Okay, very good. So make sure that you have the API key, and we'll continue in the next video. All right, so we have our API key. I created a new project here called AI Task Breakdown. And so what we'll do, actually, before we do anything, inside, I'm going to create a new file called .env. Now, the .env file is an environment file which we can use to add certain secret keys or secret values that we don't want to be able to push them to GitHub or anywhere else so that other people have access to it. So that is customary when you're developing applications. So it's a .env like this. If you hit enter, you can see there it is. So here is where I'm going to add the OpenAI key. So what we want to do in caps, say open as such AI underscore API underscore key. You can name whatever you want, but this is usually how I like to name it. And then go ahead and grab that API key which we created right earlier and add it there. So you have to do that once, save it, and you don't have to deal with it anymore. So it's going to be inside here. Make sure to not share this API key with anyone, because if they have access to that, they can use it, and then you will end up having to pay for it. Next, let's go back to OpenAI. And what we'll do is let's go ahead and click and find the documentation. Click that, and we have the documentation here. Okay, so let's go ahead and say introduction. You can read about everything here. There's a lot of things, key concepts, and those are things that you should read if you're interested in. But this is just an overview of how to use OpenAI, so we're not going to go too deep here. Go to Kickstart, and this is what we want. So it says here to Kickstart a design to help you to get your local development environment set up and everything. So let's go ahead. They talk about account setup and everything. And the good thing is that it's already set up for Python, which is wonderful. So this tells us exactly how we can set things up and start getting started using, in this case, Python plus the OpenAI API key. So we can see there's Python installation, which we've done already. We can set up the virtual environment, which we know how to do that already. And then we have how to install the OpenAI Python library. So let's just go ahead and copy this command there. And we need to install OpenAI API key. We need to install OpenAI package. So paste it all here. Make sure your virtual environment is running. Say enter. Okay, so we should have our OpenAI installed in a single project like this. So as I say here, there is that env file that was created as we showed you. The important thing here is that in order for your env file to be ignored by version control, create a git ignore file at the root of your project. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to add inside of this project, just say git ignore. Actually has to be .git ignore. You don't have to do this if you are not planning on push this to a repository of some sort. And then we're going to add a line with that env like that. Okay, so I'm going to paste it all in there. And of course, they have how the env file should look like, OpenAI API key like this. And then you pass your OpenAI key. All right, so and next what we'll do, we can just copy this information here, go back to our project, and paste all of that there. So this is wonderful. So it says here that we have the client and we invoke in the OpenAI class, which has all the information, knows how to get to the backend of OpenAI and us to be able to use it. And also gives us this defaults to getting the key using OS environment, right? We can also go ahead. We have to install a package called python.env, which will make it possible for the project to be able to know where to get that environment variable file. Okay, and all you have to do is just say python, or actually say pip install, say python dash .env. Very important. Hit enter, and I already have it installed, but for you it's going to go ahead and install for you. Very cool. And once we've got that going, next we'll have to import it so we can use it. So we're going to have to import a few things. So I'm going to say from .env. I want to import a few things. I'm going to import define.env as well as load.env. So this is going to find those environment files as well as load them. So we just have one, but that's okay. Okay, so now that we have that imported, we then have to write the following. We have to say load.env as a function, and then we're going to say find.env as such. And then of course we're going to have to find the file itself. So that's what's happening here. So we're going to load them, and to load them we'll also of course have to go find so that we can load them. Now let's go ahead and run this, and looks like it's going to work. Takes a few seconds, and voila, we got a lot of gibberish here, but it's okay. We are going to decipher everything and look at it later. But that means that of course this test is working, because now we're able to get information from our OpenAI API key, which is wonderful. All of this is coming from what actually is driving ChatGPT, which is incredible. Okay, we'll decipher all of this in the next video. Okay, so if we successfully were able to get some information from calling the OpenAI API key, right? The OpenAI, so we're saying client, which is an OpenAI object really, so it knows how to go back, so it knows how to connect to the backend of OpenAI. Okay, let me get rid of this. We don't need that. Okay, so what's happening here? Now that we know that this is actually working, let's go make this maybe a little bit smaller so we can see everything. What's happening here is that we're using the client, which is our object here, OpenAI object, and we are going to chat completions, and we're creating something. So essentially we're passing a few things here. The first thing we're passing is the model. The large language model that we're using is GPT 3.5-Turbo. So for what we need, this is totally fine. And the other thing we're passing here is the messages. You can see the messages here. We have two dictionaries. And these dictionaries here are going to be sent to the large language model, this one here, to do something. What are we asking it for? To get a completion. In this case, we're going to get a response from the AI. So the first model here, or rather the first dictionary, we have a role, which is going to be the system, and we're passing the content. So we are telling the system what is it that we want for it to pose as. So you can see here, we can say, you are a poetic assistant, skilled in explaining complex programming concepts with creative flair. So, and then we have another role here, the user. Now we're passing the user who's going to be asking questions, essentially. So the content we're going to pass is compose a poem that explains the concept of recursion in programming. And that's what it's sent out. And then we get the completion object that comes in. And this object here, I'm going to also just print the completion first to see as well. And let's say print, and I'm going to put a just new line, and then something like that, and then new line as such. So we can see the difference. So say clear, and let's run again. So we're going to go ahead and call the OpenAI API and get some sort of information. So you can see the first thing that we get here is just an object chat completion, and we have the ID. So each completion that we receive, essentially each response that we receive has an ID. And then we have the choices. These choices here contains a list of choice, which has a lot of things. So essentially that's what we're doing here. We have the completion object, we go to choices, and then we go ahead, because it's a list, as you see, we get the first message from that list, right? So we go to list and we go and find message, which indeed is a chat completion object. Now, if you want, we can go ahead and just get the content, right? Because it's just an object. Let's go ahead and say dot content like this. We can go ahead and get that. And this will give us something totally different. Of course, this is what we are getting from here, right? So we have the chat completion, and we can go ahead and get content. So this is just the whole object, which is out here, up here. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete that because we're not going to need that. Let's go ahead and just run once again to see just the contents. It takes a few seconds, and you can see now we get the contents. So the contents is indeed what we asked. We know that the system is a poetic, skilled in explaining complex programming concepts, and we want it to compose a poem. And there we go, we have a poem. Very cool. And we can change things here, right? For instance, I can remove that to say I want the system to be specialized in something else. I can say you are a very smart entrepreneur who knows how to build successful businesses. Something like this. And now I can ask question, because we're telling the system the knowledge base that it needs to have. Okay, so now I can actually ask a question. Give me 2 to 5 business ideas I can pursue online. Okay, just the example here. Now, if you run this again, of course, we're not going to get this response because that was for a different case. Let's clear this and run. Takes a few moments. There we go. So now we have some information. And notice I said give me 2 to 5, and look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first one says niche subscription box service, online education platform, virtual event planning service, and then let's see, eco-friendly lifestyle brand, digital marketing agency, and so forth. All right, so you can actually ask it anything, and you can specify what kind of knowledge you want the system to have. That way you are able to ask questions to it. So here we go. That's an overview of using OpenAI, in this case OpenAI API, and with the API key for us to be able to interact with the model. In this case, we interacting with the GPT-3, that 5 turbo model. Now we can go back to the platform OpenAI documents and learn more if you wish to. So you can see it says next step here. For more detailed information on our models and the API, see our GPT guide. You can go and do so. You can visit the OpenAI cookbook for in-depth examples, and there's a lot of things here. Anything that we pass along, the questions we pass and everything to the OpenAI, the large language model, it's called prompts. So that means this is considered a prompt. We're prompting as a user our system that knows everything about entrepreneurship. Very good. So now we have the basics of the completion endpoint here, as you see, using the GPT-3.5 turbo model, and we're able to pass in the system content as well as the user content here, right? To say what is the prompt, as well as what is it that we want, specify the knowledge of the system, right? To know. Okay, so this is good. That means now the sky is limit, really, because now we can move forward and start creating our application, which is an app that will allow us to break down a goal or a task into smaller milestones. So to organize our code here, we're going to use all of that. So I'm going to start by defining a function here. Say diff and call generate milestones. And this will need to take a task description of that milestone. Okay, and then we're going to add all of that inside there. So I'm going to just copy all of this. In this function here, I'm going to create a prompt. So prompt is going to be essentially what we're going to take from as a parameter here. And we're going to add some text to say something which we're going to add here so that the system, in this case our large language model, know how to respond. But before we do that, let's go ahead and make sure that we tell the system here, we pass in a content that will train our model to specify the knowledge. Well, it's all about tasks, it's all about milestones. So we can say you are a very efficient, driven, let's say task and successful. You have helped millions of people to become more productive and focus and able to accomplish their most important goals in life. Okay, so just prompting it to make sure that we know exactly what. So we're putting together, in this case, part of this large language model to say you specialize in X, Y, and Z. Therefore, when we ask certain questions, you will know just about that. All right. Okay, so now we're going to pass here the prompt. What are we going to prompt this special person here with all this knowledge? What do we want help with? So in this case here, I'm going to put something like this. Say break down the following task into smaller milestones. So, and then I'm going to put colon and a couple of new lines. And then I'm going to pass. The question is, how do we pass then this task description? Because we need to pass that task description inside here, inside of our prompt. The better way actually is to go up here and create a variable called prompt. And this prompt here, I'm going to put inside of a doc string because it's easier for us to work with, and we can put new lines and so forth. So what I will do is I'm going to actually write it all here. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's go ahead and get all of this and put inside here like such. And then this is where I'm going to actually put let's put that in F string, of course. This is where I'm going to actually pass the description, the task description inside there. I'm going to also say something, say hash n, and then I'm going to say task that we want. It's going to be the task description, and then enter dash n, or slash I should say, and then say milestones. So what I'm doing here is that now I'm putting inside this variable. So let's say the task is to build an app, right? So it's going to be break down the following tasks into smaller milestones. And then I say the task is going to be building apps. I'm going to pull in what we pass in, building ask milestones. And so it's going to go ahead and take that and pass to our system, which indeed is going to be backed by our GPT-3.5 Turbo, which is the large language model, and then it's going to give us that breakdown. Now that means this prompt here, variable, that's what I'm going to be passing inside here. Okay, say prompt, because it has to be passed in as a string. I'm going to put an F string and pass our prompt variable, which is what we have here. Very good. And so I'm going to remove that. Okay, so I made a mistake. This actually has to be outside. So let's move that out there, because that's going to be outside inside of the method or function, but not inside of our completion here. Very good. So that's what we're doing here. We pass this prompt into our user role here, which then is going to be passed into our GPT 3.5 Turbo. We'll know that we're specifying a certain knowledge base and get that response. And in this case, let's go ahead and return our object, which is response. Let's actually put this, say response. Set that, so it's going to be response. And we know we go to choices as such and get the index 0, go to message and get the content as we saw before, as we saw here. So now let's go ahead and see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and print. Actually, let's call our generate milestones and pass something here. Okay, let's pass a task description that says become a Python developer. I think that's fitting. Okay, and say res. That way we can just print our result as such. Let's see. Let's run. Now it will take a few seconds because it's thinking. Okay, there we go. So we have a response. Look at that. So first of all, learn the basics of Python, and we have some explanations. Very good. 2, practice problem solving with Python. We have some explanations as well. Very, very helpful. And then dive deeper into Python and its libraries. Oh, very cool. 4, build projects to showcase your skills. And 5, network with other Python developers. And then 6, keep learning and stay updated. Very good. Just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we're able to see this working. All of that by just the prompt that we pass here. So we can pass any other thing here. Let's say learn faster, something like that. Let's see what's going to give us in this case. Okay, look at this. 1, clearly define your learning objectives and goals, create a structured study plan, identify your preferred learning style, break down the subject, and all of that. Very good. Very, very good indeed. Let's say, be a little bit broad here. Run a marathon. Let's see if this is going to help us. Okay, look at this. It's giving us all this information, even the timelines of things that we can do for week 17 and 20. All of that is here. Okay, very good. And the other thing we can do, we can specify in our prompt exactly the results that we want. So I can copy all of this, just to give you an example. And then in our prompt here, I can say, we have that milestones. I can also say, okay, make sure the result is formatted as follows. And then I can paste this result here, all of this, right? So what's going to happen now is that it's going to look before it answers, gives us the answer. It's going to look at the format that we want. So now this is just off the cuff here. You can make it even more beautiful and more precise, but just to give an example. So you can actually prompt whatever you want and tell it exactly how you want it to be shown. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Now, if I go here and say build wealth, because we all want to build wealth in one way or the other anyway, let's go ahead and open that and clear, and let's run. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, look at this. Because we specified indeed this is the format that we want to have, it's going to go ahead and always give that format. Now, sometimes, remember, this is a large language model. Sometimes it may do it or not. But you can see that it actually works. Whatever we specify in our prompt, it tries as best as it can to give us exactly that format. Say task, build wealth, and then milestones. Start giving the first 2 months, do all of that. 3 months, increase savings, and month 7 and 12, monitor and adjust investment, set up automatic contributions, diversify investments, and all of that. And even gives us a little note here to remember to stay consistent in all the great stuff. So essentially, this is exactly what a good coach would tell you to do. All right. So we see that this works, but let's clean up our code to make it even better here, okay? So the first thing here is whenever we are dealing with doing HTTP requests and so forth, we need to put everything inside of a try catch because we don't know if we're going to get the result or not. So I'm going to put that, say try, and then I'm going to say except, and then I'm going to say exception as E. And then if that happens, let's just go ahead and return an exception, something that says an error occurred, and pass, in this case, E. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to move all of this like that. So I'm going to move that inside of our try and catch, or our try. Okay, that's very good. And I'm returning response choices and so forth. That's very good. And what I will do, actually, just make this even better, I'm going to define main here. And then I'm going to put all of that, of course, inside of main. And even before that, let's go ahead and make this even more beautiful. Allow users to actually add input. So I'm going to first start saying print and task breakdown generator, and then I'm going to say task description. Go to input and ask for the user, say enter the task or goal you'd like to break down into milestones. So I'm going to check first if task description, so meaning if there is a task description that I have entered, of course, I'm going to print something that says, put new line, generating milestones such. And then I'm going to say if milestones, and then I'm going to say milestones. I'm going to call the generate milestones and pass our task description. And pass directly as that. And then I'm going to check if milestones, so if milestone is not null or doesn't have anything, or in this case, if milestone is not, right, if milestone is not null and meaning has something, then I'm going to go ahead and print again, say milestones, and then print the actual milestones as such. Okay, else if we don't get anything, meaning the milestones is empty or doesn't have anything, just go ahead and say print failed to generate milestones. Okay. So this is an else for this immediate if statement. Now if the task is also null, nothing was entered or something happens, say else. In that case, I'm going to print no task description provided. Okay, so this is way better, and let's just get rid of that. And this is in main, and we're going to go ahead and call that by passing this code. All right, so this is way better now. As you see, we are first printing task breakdown generator, and then we get input from the user by prompting them this, no pun intended, and then we make sure that the description is not empty. If that's the case, we're going to say, okay, generating milestones, because that takes a little while. And then we generate those milestones by calling generate milestones, and we pass that task description, which should have something as they entered here. And then we check once we get those milestones. Okay, if we have some milestones, we can just print milestones and then print the actual milestones. If that's not the case, we just say fail to generate milestones. And in case the word description was not entered or something happens, we say no task description provided. And that's it. All right, so this is better because now we can let people, or users in this case, drive this better. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, task breakdown generator. Enter the task or goal you would like to break down into milestone. Say learn to swim. Okay, generating milestones. Okay, there we go. Once it's generated, we can see, we can go all the way up here and says milestones, task learn to swim. Week 1 to 2, research local swimming pools. Week 3 to 4, learn kicking techniques. 5 to 6, 7 to 8, and look at that. Wonderful. So it indeed works. Okay, so the same thing is working as before, but now we have something a little bit more elaborate and easier to use because we have the input that happens here. Very good, very good. So in this case, I can actually move all of this into its own function. That way we can just call it, say define. Say app console, like that, and paste all of that. Make sure the indentation actually works. Okay, there we go. So now I can call this inside here. I can fold that, and I'm going to delete all of that and paste it like this, and this should work. Okay, let's save. Just make sure it works. Clear. Run again. All right. Climb Mount Everest. Okay, very good. Still works. And that's just beautiful. So the way things are right now, we have a pretty nice program that is interfacing with AI, in this case OpenAI API, and we're able to generate this breakdown of milestones of whatever we have as a task. Now, it works great. We even including the input so that it's console based, and that's fine. But sometimes you want to create something really quick so you can show off, or you can show to your employer, or show to your stakeholders, or whoever is that you want to show to the work, the things that you're doing, right? When it comes to Python. There's this simple framework, Python framework, that allows you to do just that. So you can quickly create a web page framework called Streamlit. Okay, now this course is not about Streamlit, but I just want to give you a quick overview on how to use that. So if you go to Google and say Streamlit like this, you can see this Streamlit, a faster way to build and share data apps. It's really cool because Streamlit is open source Python framework for machine learning and data science teams. Now, you don't have to be a data science person or in a machine learning realm. That's not the case. That's not the point. The point is that anybody can use it to create interactive data apps in minutes. Let's check it out. So if you go ahead and click, in this case here, Streamlit, you can see Streamlit. That is the website. Okay. Looks really nice, and the beauty here is that they tell you exactly how easy this is to use. You can see by writing this code, this is what you see on the browser right away. So it's extremely easy to use. So to create simple applications that you can. So this is exactly what we're going to be using. So that way we can quickly have a user interface that is backing our application. So if you go ahead and click here, try Streamlit now, it gives you exactly what you need to do. So it says here, say pip install Streamlit, and then Streamlit hello, and that's it. Okay, let's go ahead and copy this. Clear, I'm going to paste, pip install, make sure that your virtual environment is indeed running, and let's install that. Okay, so after a few moments, Streamlit should be installed already. And what we can do now, let me go ahead and close that one down so we don't look at it. And at the top here, I'm going to say import Streamlit, and then I'm going to say as st to have that handle there, an alias. All right, so I'm going to create yet another function here so we can put everything in there. Say Streamlit _app, So this is where we're going to add our Streamlit app. So all the code which is going to take care, in this case, use the generate milestone code. Okay, the beauty here, I'm going to show you real quick. To create Streamlit application is so simple. First of all, I'm going to use st and create a title for our web page. So I'm going to say st, say title, and I'm going to pass a title that would say task break down app, like this. That's it. So now if I call this, I'm going to actually call this function here. Let's go ahead and comment this out. I'm going to call this function in our main. Let's go ahead and run this. Now the reason, now we're not going to run the way we used to run. In order to run a Streamlit app, we have to actually say something like this: Streamlit run app.py, like that. Okay, if you hit run, it's going to go ahead and open a web browser. This is the web browser. So just like that, we have a web page running, and it says here task breakdown, which is indeed exactly what we added here. Now this is going to continue to run, so just leave it as is. Okay, very good. So I'm going to close this one down and let it run. So each time that we make changes, it's going to go ahead and rerun all of that, and we don't have to do anything. Okay, that's it. Very, very simple. Now you can learn more about Streamlit if you go to the website. So it's not what we're going to be doing this course. I'm just going to show you the basics here so we can get this going. All right. So next we're going to add a text area so we can get the user input. So I'm going to call this task description. So essentially the same names as we've used before. I'm going to say st, and then I'm going to get the text area as such, and then say enter the task or goal you'd like to break down into milestones. All right, and that's it. Let's save this. If you save this and go here and say always rerun, and voila, we have a text area just like that. How cool is that? That's really amazing. All right, let's continue. Now we have that task description that we will get. And then I'm going to add a button. To add a button, all you say, you're going to say if st.button, there is that object button there, and I'm going to say generate milestones. Okay, so this is also how we handle the click of the button. So if there is a button, we create a button in this case, and then whatever we put inside here, it's going to pertain to this button. So I'm going to say if, first of all, task description. Again, if we have a task description, which is this guy here, and it's all good, then I'm going to say milestones, and I'm going to call generate milestones. So this code is pretty much essentially the same as we written before. It's just that we're writing inside of a Streamlit application. And I'm going to pass this task description. So, and then I'm going to add st.markdown. So I just want to add some markdown so the page has something, right? So I'm going to put here some pounds and say milestones. Let's make sure that we put colon there. So this is going to write onto the page, right? And then st, and then I'm going to say write. Okay, and then st.write, and then write that milestones into our page. I'm going to say else st.write. I'm going to write a message onto the page. Please enter a task description. And that's it, believe it or not. So all of this code is going to allow us to have a web page where users can actually enter their task, and then we're going to call generate milestones, and then those milestones should be shown. All right, let's see if this works. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and save, and you should have it running in the background here. Okay, you see I saved and we run again. So now I'm going to say build muscles. All right, let's go. Click generate. See, it's running. So in a few seconds here we should see something, hopefully. And look at this. Just like that, we're able to have our milestones. Look at this, week 1 and 2, research week 3 and 4, and all of this information. Just like that, we have a nice web page. Of course, you can share this with somebody. There's something else you can do to make that really actually work. But essentially, you can see we have something we can look at visually. And if I come here and write something else, say build a house, run, it's going to go ahead and look at this. Milestones, task build a house, and gives milestones, all of these things. And all of this, remember, this is what we prompted to say this is the format that we want to receive the results as with. Very good, very good. So I hope you are seeing the power of using Python and AI, right? In this case, OpenAI API to create AI-based applications. Now, this is just the very tip of the iceberg here. There's so much you can do, and I really encourage you to think of things that you can actually do with the OpenAI API. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video where you learn how to put together a very simple but powerful application. Automation, essentially, application that allows you to break down tasks. So it's very useful. The idea here is for you to take this and think of something else you can do using the power of Python and AI. In this case, we used OpenAI API. Okay. By the way, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to let me know by liking this video and subscribe to this channel, because I noticed that almost 80% of people who watch my videos in this channel are not subscribed. What a shame. So go ahead and subscribe to show that you care about me and that maybe that was a little bit of a stretch, but go ahead and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and share this video, and always leave a comment, even if it's just to say, good job, Paulo. I appreciate that because it makes me happy, and I don't feel like I'm just talking to myself, really. Okay, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.